All right. Well, it is 2 o'clock on the dot. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome everybody to another QGIve webinar. I am so excited today for today's topic, thinking outside of the big event box, cost-effective peer-to-peer fundraisers that your organization can host with less money, less time and commitment, just overall great ideas to help you raise a lot of funds, even though you may be short-staffed or those big events that are really overwhelmed. Before we do get started here, for those that are unfamiliar with QGIve, we are an online fundraising platform. We have solutions for all size nonprofits, including year-round fundraising tools, text giving, peer-to-peer fundraising, and auction tools. You are at the center of everything that we do here at QGIve, and our goal is to make fundraising as easy as possible so you can raise more money online. And if you're interested in learning more, please visit us at www.qgive.com and request a demo. We can show you a personalized demonstration of the QGIve platform. A few house notes before we do begin today. We will be recording this webinar, and I'll send you a copy of the video recording once the webinar and session is complete today. You'll also get a copy of the slides as well in that email. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We do have the Q&A option. That is very easy for us to track when you do ask a specific question towards us. Makes it a lot easier to answer those at the end of the presentation when we get there. You can still use the chat option for general discussion and things like that, or if there's any issues with audio or video or what have you. But the questions, please use the Q&A for any of the questions that you have. And if you have a Twitter, please share your highlights and takeaways with the hashtag QGiveWebinar, and make sure to follow us at QGive. My name is Justin Cook. I am the product marketing manager here at QGive. Basically, my job is to make it as easy as possible for you, nonprofits, to find and learn everything that you need to know about our fundraising tools. And today I am joined by our amazing customer marketing manager, Caitlin. She introduced herself a little bit before the webinar, and we'll talk with her a little bit later on today. But thank you again for joining us, Caitlin. I'm so excited for you to share some of your experience. So what are we covering today? We're going to take a look at a couple of examples of cost-effective peer-to-peer fundraisers, which include DIY fundraising and network fundraising. We're going to provide you with actionable tips and takeaways, including why peer-to-peer fundraising is an effective fundraising strategy, fundraisers you can host without that large event, how to engage donors, volunteers, sponsors, and board members, tools and resources you need to be effective, and examples from other nonprofits that have hosted these types of peer-to-peer fundraisers. So let's go ahead and get started here. Why is peer-to-peer fundraising such an effective strategy? Well, first and foremost, peer-to-peer fundraising empowers your supporters to raise funds on behalf of your organization. And that provides them the ability to do storytelling. And storytelling is a powerful form of fundraising. When people feel connected to your nonprofit, they will be more apt to give to your organization. With peer-to-peer, not only can your nonprofit tell your story, your supporters can as well. Supporters that raise funds for your nonprofit tend to have a personal connection, whether that's a personal story of triumph or hardship, or if that is someone that they really cared about. At some level, they're going to have some type of personal connection with your organization. And peer-to-peer empowers those supporters to build individual or team fundraising pages so they can tell their story to their networks, which connects your nonprofit with your supporters and your supporters' networks. It also provides access to fundraising tools, not only for your organization, but also for your supporters. Supporters need tools, especially fundraising tools that make it easy to raise money. Everything from email and text fundraising tools and social integrations and other social sharing tools make it easy for your supporters to find and reach their networks very easily and very quickly. Peer-to-peer also has a fun but very competitive aspect to it all. Everyone has the ability to track their fundraising progress and compare their success to others. Some platforms offer things such as leaderboards and other competitive tools to track the activity of themselves as well as other supporters within there. And if you do have teams as well, it'll track that too. So it adds a fun and lighthearted way to compete for the most fundraising dollars. In the end, competing supporters will raise more trying to get to that top spot. Another great aspect of peer-to-peer is the motivation behind it. So we call this gamification. And gamification is the ability of fundraising tools to keep your supporters motivated by providing them little goals to reach and then providing an incentive for that. Things like fundraising badges, or again, we can go back to the leaderboards. Those are another thing as well. Keeping that top spot, those little manageable goals to keep involved, keep motivated, and which all of that means they'll raise more for your organization. So we know why peer-to-peer is great, but what types of peer-to-peer fundraisers are there for your organization to host? Well, there's a variety. And we can look at some of the traditional peer-to-peer fundraisers like 5Ks, walks, bikeathons, and these can be both an in-person, a hybrid, or a virtual only type of fundraiser, right? But hosting these types of fundraisers, it's a huge hassle. They take months of planning. They take a lot of coordination for the event on site, finding volunteers, keeping staff motivated and working hard on the event throughout the entire process, marketing the peer-to-peer event, and then actually hosting and then breaking down the event. This all takes a ton of time and effort and a lot of manpower really to pull off. And at the end of the day, it can leave your staff tired and burnt out after the event. But cost-effective alternatives do exist to these traditional peer-to-peer events, which can, and often do, raise a lot of money for your nonprofit if you do them right. Those cost-effective alternatives are both DIY fundraising and network fundraising. So let's talk a little bit about what DIY is. DIY fundraisers ask your supporters to create some type of campaign to raise funds for your organization. These are not limited to a specific group of supporters. You can really ask any of your supporters in your network to participate in a DIY. These are not typically tied to one event. You can, but these are not typically tied to one event, and you can really run DIY fundraisers throughout the entire year. Your supporters will create their own fundraising page, generate that campaign momentum, and raise money for your organization. And during DIY fundraisers, it's the job of the staff person to coach and provide supporters with the resources they need to succeed, such as fundraising tools, fundraising ideas, coaching on how to talk about your mission, providing them email templates, social media graphics, and so on. Your job there is to support them with whatever they need to raise money. In DIY fundraisers, you typically see these easily and effortlessly will revolve around what we call celebrations. So celebrations being a supporter's birthday, they set up their fundraising page, and instead of asking for money for themselves or gifts, they ask their friends and family to donate to your cause instead. We also see this happen with anniversaries and weddings. There's many different types of celebrations that we've seen our different nonprofits host. And we have a lot of creative ideas that have come behind this. So you don't only have to do a DIY celebration. There is a sales and service type of DIY fundraiser. So supporters can create their own fundraising page and sell their goods or services. It's like a bake sale or a car wash or something like that. And we also have activity workshops. So supporters create a page describing the activity they're going to offer, and then the admission to that activity is a donation to your organization. So there's a lot of creative ideas. These are only two, but DIY fundraisers are very effective ways to engage not only all of your supporters, but to get them raising money for your organization. Another type of easy and cost-effective peer-to-peer fundraiser are network fundraisers. So these are like DIY fundraisers, but the network fundraiser asks your supporters to set up and build momentum to reach their fundraising goals, but it's a small group. So while we're in DIY fundraising and you're asking everyone, with network fundraising, you're really asking a small select group of individual fundraisers to actually raise money for your organization. And it's their job to build that momentum on themselves and really connect themselves with the community. Generally, these fundraisers have supporters compete against one another to raise money, and the winner can get bragging rights or an actual prize, an incentive tied to the fundraiser itself. So what types of people would you be looking at for these types of fundraisers? Well, you're looking for individuals that are well connected with the community. So a great place to look are your board members, your local celebrities in the community leaders, local businesses and corporations. And what you'll do with these are you can provide, so there's two types of examples for our network fundraisers. So one, again, where it's not tied to one event. So you're not hosting a gala afterwards. You're not doing like a cook-off or any of those types of competitions. Essentially, what you're doing is you're offering an incentive to those fundraisers that raise the most and build awareness for your organization. But you can also pair these types of things with an event like a contest. Like I mentioned before, you could do a cook-off and where you have your advocate group that is raising funds for your organization, cook something, and then donors will vote who they think the best dish was, right? So there's a lot of different ways, and we actually have a few examples as we get later into the presentation that everyone can check out here and draw some inspiration from on how your organization can implement these. So let's talk a little bit about how to engage donors, volunteer sponsors, and board members, the fundraisers that are actually going to be helping you to raise funds during these types of fundraisers. And although the network and DIY fundraisers are slightly different in the way that they're executed, they do have similar best practices that to achieve the best results that we always see consistently across every peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. The first thing that you should do is to form a committee. It's like an event committee, except with these types of committees, you're asking a group of staff and board members to plan and execute this type of fundraiser. You're going to want to identify and recruit people into your advocate group that we were talking about earlier. And this group will also be helping run point on helping any of the fundraisers that need help. And we'll cover a little bit about where they sort of come into later here in a bit. The next thing is creating a retention strategy. This is key to year-over-year fundraising success for any annual fundraisers and events is the returning participants to these things. So make sure you have a plan in place to make fundraising fun for your participants, have a communication plan afterwards to thank them for their participation, and invite them to join again next year. And finally, engage your corporations and local businesses. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, you'll want to reach out to corporations and local businesses to recruit for fundraising. But what happens if they say no? Ask for sponsorships or any other type of monetary donation to this type of fundraiser. Anything to help supplement the income that you're doing with these types of events and fundraisers, you want to engage as many corporations and local businesses as possible. The next step is building your advocate group. So as we mentioned before, you'll be asking your supporters to raise money for you. And specifically for network fundraising, your advocate group is that dedicated group of people we discussed earlier. This will be your fundraising group throughout the entire fundraiser. These are going to be the individuals that are competing for that top fundraising prize. For DIY, it's a little bit different. You're asking anyone in your supporter base to raise money. However, what we suggest here is that you work with your current supporters. You're looking into some past fundraisers, some past participants that have been really raising funds for your organization. You'll want to engage these. So these group of people and form this advocate group and recruit them because they're going to help you spread the word about your mission and facilitate fundraising in recruiting not only past fundraisers, but also to really kickstart the fundraising. This is going to be your key group to really kicking off any fundraiser that you have and get that momentum going. And for both of these groups, though, let's talk about what exactly that you're looking for in this advocate group. So the first one is we're looking for a group of passionate people about your cause. So you'll want to start with past top fundraisers. This group knows how to raise funds and most likely has a strong connection with not only your cause, but other people in the community as well that they can look to either raise funds in the network fundraising side or recruit them to actually fundraise for your organization. There's a lot of places that you look for this. As we mentioned before, you can look for board members, but you can also look at donors, regular donors to your organization, volunteers, especially if they're consistently volunteering with your organization, if you built that rapport with them, or someone that just interacts with your organization a lot on social media. You're just looking for anyone that is excited about your work and have shown interest in your organization. Next, you're going to want to communicate to them. Send them an email that clearly explains fundraising participation, include any incentives that we talked about before, what the goal is, what type of awareness are we raising here. With this group, it's important to recognize their past support as well to your organization and let them know that they can make an even greater impact by helping to build momentum early on in these types of fundraisers. And once your group has been identified, you're going to want to provide them with fundraising resources to help spread the word, including fundraising tools and those other resources that we mentioned earlier, like appeal templates and things like that. Next, we're going to inspire our supporters. And a staple in any fundraising appeal is telling your story. You're going to use your story to convert these fundraisers into really great participants, right? They're going to start raising funds and they're going to be able to really tell your story through their story, right? And it's a similar story to how you normally would market your different types of fundraisers with a slight twist, because you want to put those participants in your fundraising shoes and inspire their passion to raise funds. And inspiring your supporters will help them to sign up and will provide them motivation later on if they start to waver during the fundraising progress. You'll want to help them visualize the difference they can make by participating. And that's very critical here. Either center your activities on raising money for a particular project, like this organization did when they held a peer-to-peer event, the Sharing Center. They used a lot of different ways. They used a video, they used a couple of other storytelling pieces to really connect the dots for their board members to raise funds. So it was a really great campaign and something that we can share later. Some things that you can do to help make this connection to your organization. One, show supporters the impact they'll make with testimonials and other examples. One of the best ways to do this is through video. Being able to show them the real impact and being able to guide them in through that process of not only what you provide in your services, but the actual effect of those services when they are actually implemented. You can do, like I said, make sure you know that how fundraising participation works. And another thing that we often see is that we see other organizations actually provide a tour of their facility. So you can do a video, or if you can get your advocate group together safely to view wherever you are making an impact in your community, then I suggest doing that. Sit-in sessions or educational classes, anything that you can do to help out there, to help your supporters get connected with your organization is going to be crucial here. And make sure that you establish with your supporters when you're discussing this with them that who they need to reach out to for questions. And this is where we come back to that event committee, right? That we want our supporters to know that the committee is here to help them with whatever they need. So this is your chance here to let them know that where you are and how they can reach you for any questions that they have. So let's talk about some successful peer-to-peer fundraisers and the 4 key behaviors that we always see across the board with these types of fundraisers. So the first one is personalizing fundraising pages. So we see when supporters personalize their fundraising pages, they raise 7 to 8 times more than those who don't. This is very critical. And what that means is it's important for us to encourage our supporters to personalize their pages, and we need to provide them the tools to do so. And the best time to encourage people to get started is immediately after they are ready to, start fundraising for your organization. We're going to want to get them started really quickly, get them access to fundraising tools, and start building out their page. Help them build that momentum for themselves too, right? You'll want to explore including instructions or ideas in your different emails that you're sending out and appeals. And when they do commit to it, make sure that you're providing clear instructions on how they can get started and set up in the fundraising tools that you are providing them. The reason why this is so powerful, and we sort of touched on it before, is the social proof behind it. In marketing, we use social proof to show potential buyers that their peers use in like a specific product that we sell. In the nonprofit world, organizations can show potential donors that their peers support and donate to a cause. And by encouraging supporters to complete their fundraising page and share it with their network, it provides that powerful social proof to their friends and family and that showing their personal connection that they have to the cause. So this is very critical in helping your organization raise more. The second, send fundraising emails. Supporters who send emails raise between 2 and 11 times more than supporters who don't send emails. And it sounds kind of crazy that, sending emails has this big of a cause, but simply asking for a donation to a cause is always going to help. And we always talk about that in other best practices as well, is that make sure that you're asking and that your appeals are going out to all of your donors. A simple ask goes a long way. You're going to face two major obstacles, though, as you try to encourage this activity. One is the busyness of your supporters. They are going to be, fundraising for your organization, and they know what they signed up to, but that doesn't mean that their life gets put on hold, right? They still have to go to work. They still have friends and family that they have to deal with if they have kids as well. So they're going to be busy. And then two, they may have anxiety about asking for money. It's not easy, right? You got to remember that these are beginner fundraisers. They're not the experts that you guys are. So they may have anxiety just around asking for money. So it's really important to consider how you make email fundraising easier for your supporters. They're not professionals, and it may take them a long time writing those emails appeals. So offering them those email templates to quickly send out those emails is going to make it a ton easier for all of your supporters when they do get signed up. Third, post to social media. I think that's pretty simple. Social media is one of those really powerful platforms out there, but supporters who update every 5 days or so raise about 3 times more than the supporters that don't. So it's important to encourage your supporters to use the social media tools that you're providing them. And one of the biggest reasons that social media is so important of a successful peer-to-peer fundraiser is simply because we get a ton of emails. The average person receives more than 120 emails a day. So the more opportunities your supporters have to get in front of their friends and family, the more likely their appeals are going to make an impression and someone is going to donate. Over 20% of all donations donated to a peer-to-peer event come from social media posts. So sharing fundraising pages is something you really want to encourage your supporters to do, and do it regularly. And that's also where those social media graphics come into play, right? Make it as simple as possible for them to get started. And finally, reaching fundraising milestones. We see in our peer-to-peer event system that if a supporter can get at least one fundraising badge, they on average raise $306.50 compared to supporters that have no badges. They tend to only raise $89.54. And the research from this turned up some really fascinating statistics. The more milestones a fundraiser reached, the more that they raised. And there's a ton of speculation from the data that we were looking into as to why this is. But essentially what we found is that people are motivated by having goals set for them. Giving supporters a series of goals to reach and rewarding them for those goals is a powerful way to motivate them to stay involved in the fundraising process. Peer-to-peer fundraising resource. So we've been hinting at it as we've been going through the presentation so far on what your organization can provide to donors to make sure that they are successful and that they feel ready to fundraise and get over any anxieties that they have about fundraising. So one of the biggest things that you can do is providing them a fundraising guide. And this goes a long way. It doesn't need to include advanced level strategies or tactics to be useful, just the basics. This will make a huge difference for your supporters. You should think of the guide as a reference point for them. What do they need to know? What do you want them to know? Some tips that you can do here are tips on how to raise money, how they can tell their story, and how they can tell yours. You can include some fundraising ideas, tips for designing their own fundraising page and their team page if you're offering team fundraising, and writing prompts, talking points, graphics, best practices for sending appeals, the importance of segmentation and personalization, and so on and so forth. And I did include a couple of links down here to some of QGive's internal resources that we provide to our nonprofits. You can, when I do send out the slides later, and you'll see these throughout the presentation, when I do send the slides later, you should be able to just copy and paste that URL over and reach whatever we're talking about here. Next, make sure to include a section that helps supporters get familiar with the fundraising tools. You can do this both when you are meeting with your advocate group and through the resources that you provide them. Let them know the tools that they have available, where they can find these tools, and then how to use them. And then the rest is on them. Finally, make sure to include example appeal templates so it makes it as easy as possible for them to get set up and get fundraising as quickly as possible. Something that is a fantastic that we have been working on here at QGive, and where really the birth of this idea came from, is a DIY and network fundraising toolkit. So what we did is we've collected all of our resources that we have for peer-to-peer fundraisers in general, and guides and tips and best practices to hosting not only a DIY fundraiser and a network fundraiser, but also peer-to-peer fundraising in general. So I will include a link to this resource when I do the follow-up email tomorrow, but make sure to check this out. This is going to be another great resource for your organization. We've organized it as well for you guys to, when you do download it, you'll have each section that shows you this is some resources that your organization can use to market and to get these set up. And we also provide you with the resources that you can give to your supporters. So really easy, really great toolkit for your organization to check out. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And now I'm going to have Caitlin come in, introduce herself a little, and show you some real world examples of our nonprofits here at QGive that have used these events and been successful.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. So like Justin mentioned, my name is Caitlin Lipham, and I'm the customer marketing manager here at QGive. I love getting to help create and provide resources for fundraisers, and that's because I spent 7 years in the nonprofit world with the American Cancer Society. So I worked on a lot of peer-to-peer events that had a DIY and or network fundraising component wrapped into them. And then later on in my career, I ended up going on to become a senior manager, where I actually trained new fundraising staff coming into the society over a really large territory, working on similar events. So before we dive into some examples from a couple QGive clients, I wanted to take a moment and recap and expand on some of this awesome information that Justin just shared with us, and talk through some tactics that I implemented when I was running these kinds of campaigns. So let's go on to the next slide, and we'll talk about what we can bring back to your community, right? Because I know a lot of times we hear all these ideas and you want to know, well, what can I do when it comes to my organization? So let's talk network fundraising first. One question I'd always get from new staff was, well, where do I find these people and how do I get them to raise money? That's the $1 million question when it comes to fundraising, and could apply to just about any kind of campaign or event. But it is a great question. And the advice that I'd give is to picture the qualities you want in a fundraiser first. So Justin talked about, what groups we can rely on, like looking to our board and that sort of thing. But if you're newer and maybe you don't have a really active board yet, or you're just like not sure, just think through those qualities. So you want somebody that is well connected, they're organized, they're passionate about your mission. And now you want to focus on ways where you can educate your community as a whole and be where these individuals are. So how can you create that mission awareness so you can build those relationships and network? Because we know with fundraising, it's all about the networking. It's all about building the relationships. And that's how you can really get the fire going with your network fundraiser. So one thing that I would do, and what I would coach staff to do, is to reach out and see where you can give presentations. So where can you attend those after hours professional, like cocktail hours or chamber meet and greets, and also like any young professional groups. Like those are groups that are usually clamoring for some volunteer opportunities, right? Another thing I would do is reach out to a lot of civic organizations. So think of like, your Rotary, your Kiwanis, because these groups are typically always looking for program speakers. And the folks that are in these civic organizations, they're usually very involved in the community. They really feel passionate about volunteerism. So make sure you're educating these groups so you can help network and find and build relationships with people that you want to be a part of your network fundraiser. And then another point that Justin touched on earlier was, those advocate groups, building a committee to help with your campaign. So definitely make sure you have a chair or some people that can help you build out your prospect list and make those asks. And it's always better to have a warmer ask, right? Another place where you can look for potential network fundraisers is looking to past event sponsors. So if your nonprofit's been around for a while and you've done some events over the years, you probably have some steadfast corporate partners and sponsors, and they may have someone that they want represented in the upcoming network fundraiser. So take the opportunity, reach out. It's a great touch point. Let them know like, hey, we have this exciting campaign coming up. And let me ask you, is there somebody from your organization that might be willing, to compete in this? Because it's another way to get exposure for that particular business or corporation. And I would do this a lot for campaigns that I would work on. And, a lot of times I would be hospitals just because of the nonprofit that I was with. And they would get so excited. They'd nominate someone and, they would all rally behind them to help them hit the goal and raise money. So it was really exciting. So this wraps into my next point about, when you're making an ask, you want to make sure that you're clearly outlining what your network fundraisers are going to receive in return. We know that people are motivated by a lot of different things. Maybe they're motivated by, again, getting that exposure for their business, or they're motivated by the opportunity of getting to network with other like-minded individuals that are a part of the campaign. But just make sure that you're really doubling down on the fact that this is an exclusive elite group of fundraisers. We're not just asking anyone, but we're asking you, like pump up their ego a little bit when you're going in to make that ask. And this is where some of those digital incentives that Justin referenced before, like badges and leaderboards, can really come in handy, because it's going to create that gamification. It's going to create that element of excitement and competition. And then also consider wrapping in some tangible incentives, right? So maybe everybody that participates gets some sort of plaque that they can hang up in their office, or, they get a shirt when they hit a certain milestone. It all depends on, what's in your budget, what you can get donated, all that sort of thing. Now, regardless of the campaign, so whether, and we talked a lot about, network fundraisers, where you can find them, but regardless if you're wanting to host a network fundraiser or just have a general DIY campaign, it is so important, and I can't stress this enough, to train, coach, and provide resources for these fundraisers. Nothing is going to bum out a participant more than feeling like they've been set up to fail, right? So like, you put in a lot of time casting a wide net, recruiting these individuals to fundraise on your behalf. So it really is your job of, you and your team, to make sure that you are giving them the resources that they need to be successful. And you can see a couple examples up on the slide here. So if you have some infographics, or let's say you have a network fundraiser, maybe you're going to help them get a poster made with a QR code that's going to link to that personal fundraising page. And I can't stress how important it is to make sure that your participants have their own fundraising page, so you can utilize that leaderboard option. And that way they don't have to collect cash, because that just sounds terrible. So you want to make sure that you're setting them up with the tools that they need to be successful. And then also make sure that you're meeting with your fundraisers periodically, again, to check in, make sure they feel supported. Because one thing that I found a lot was that there are some people that do love to ask you questions, but then there are others where they're going to suffer in silence and they're not going to let you know. So make sure you're being proactive with that communication at key points during your campaign. So one other thing is, when it comes to your actual, like the DIY events that you're coaching them on, is you want to make sure that you're giving them some ideas. We have a lot of ideas on our blog that Justin referenced earlier, but make sure that you are giving them the reins. Tell them to have fun with it. If there's something that they're passionate about or something that they're good at, like, the sky is the limit when it comes to creating those DIY fundraisers. And I saw a lot of really creative ideas. Like, people would even host their own auctions. They would connect with restaurants to where they would bring in celebrity servers of well-known city officials and get some kickbacks from that. So lots of really cool things that I've seen. Now, the topic of the hour when it comes to big events, right? So that's why we're here. We're looking for creative ways of, like, how we don't necessarily have to host that huge, big peer-to-peer 5K or something like that when it comes to these DIY and network fundraisers. But what you can think about is tying in some sort of activity element if it makes sense. But an example that I'll share in a bit, it does have an activity component, but there are ways that you can still host a network fundraiser without an activity where it's purely a campaign. So an example that I'll share just from my former fundraising life was that I would host a network fundraiser to support breast cancer. So what I would do is I would recruit an exclusive group of folks to raise money to support during the month of October, which is something else to think about. Like if you can tie in your DIY fundraising or network fundraising with an awareness month or day, that's even better because your mission is going to be top of mind. But normally what I would do, because there wasn't a huge event component tied into it, is I would start off with like a kickoff event, right? So after I recruited everybody, I'd say, hey, we're going to go to this brewery. I'm going to have some swag for you guys, some resources. So just come on down. Let's network, get to know each other. And they would really enjoy that. And honestly, like it didn't really cost anything. I could get everything donated. Usually some restaurants in town have a back room that they will open up to nonprofits. And sometimes they'd even throw in a free appetizer and a drink ticket. But point being is, even if you don't have that big event or activity, still host these kinds of socials, networking opportunities to keep your fundraisers engaged. Because it's going to help them have fun. Again, you're going to help them network, which is another reason why they might be a part of this. Another thing that you can consider, so let's say you already have a peer-to-peer event and you want to start a network fundraiser as an additional revenue stream, right? So you could consider like tying in your network fundraiser somehow into an existing event. So one thing that I eventually started doing with this network fundraiser is I would announce the winner of the campaign at a huge 5K that I had. So it wasn't that I had to create another event, but I was able to kind of like get the best of both worlds because we already had something like that going. So that's just a couple things from my past life that I wanted to share with everybody. So now I wanted to just quickly go through a couple of examples from clients. So on this next slide here, you'll see some information about Dancing with the St. Louis Stars. So this was from a client called the Independence Center. And similar idea, right? When it comes to network fundraisers, they're recruiting those local business leaders, those local celebrities. And then these leaders are actually training to dance in a competition. And what they did in their event that happened earlier this year is they actually live streamed it. So it wasn't an event where they had like a ton of people coming to a location, even though they have done it that way in the past, but they were able to host virtually and live stream the competition, and they could train with dancers, and it's really a lot of fun. And what I love about this event is that they actually raised over $737,000. So again, that kind of success doesn't happen overnight. This is an annual fundraiser. They've been at this for a while, but it just shows the power that you can have with these kinds of network fundraisers. The next example that I want to talk about, which is more of the DIY, so not that exclusive network fundraiser base, but it's the Northern Illinois Food Bank. So they created a great site using QGIF's peer-to-peer platform. Again, both of these clients did. Where they had information of what you could do to fundraise. So they took their site, they educated supporters on the mission, they're tying in all that great storytelling like Justin told us about earlier, and they're providing a variety of ways for constituents to engage, and they're educating them on how they can register. So just a really impressive site. And what I love about this campaign is that they created turnkey resources and social media graphics. So we learned, posting on social media, you're going to raise more, and they were giving their supporters the tools to do this. Also, they utilized badges and leaderboards to keep the momentum going. So I actually want to take a moment and show everyone on the call today what these examples look like in real life, just to give you an idea. So this is the Dancing with the St. Louis Stars. So you can see this is their event page. You could see who their leaders are. They have these great little avatars. They've got this thermometer widget here, and you can see that they blew their goal out of the water. So really exciting. And again, they're educating everybody, like this is what the event is about. You can see the recent activity. So lots of really great stuff here. And let's say, so let's go into a participants page. So let's go into Abby's. So Abby took the time, she customized her page, and boy, did it pay off. So it's kind of tying in all of those best practices we just learned about. And she's using a video here, which I love, to really tell her story. So coach your participants on these kinds of things. I love what the Independence Center did with this particular example. So really great stuff here. Now, for the other example that I talked about, which was more of the DIY, so the fundraisers and food drives. So this is that site from Northern Illinois Food Bank, again, using QGive's peer-to-peer platform. This is ongoing. They're getting closer and closer to their goal. But I love that they're saying, hey, here are ways you can engage. You can host a fundraiser or you can host a food drive. But the real crown jewel of this whole campaign were those resources that I talked about. So let's show you guys what that looks like. So right up here on the page, they've got their stats, they've got impact statements. They're telling you like, hey, we serve 13 counties in Northern Illinois. So anybody that lands on this page, they're going to be educated. Now, this is where it's really the icing on top. So they've got posters, they've got participant user guides, they've got templates and graphics, and they have downloadable social media graphics that they can use. So I really, really love this example. So I'm going to turn it back over to Justin now. And I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about my experience and some of those real world examples.
Fantastic. And thank you again, Caitlin, for joining us. Amazing examples, right? Shows you how easy it is and how effective these fundraisers can be. So let's talk about a little bit about QGive's peer-to-peer fundraising tools, because we can help you with all of this. That is one of the main reasons why we wanted to go ahead and let's talk about some peer-to-peer fundraising tools, right? So with QGive, you have everything that we talked about. So first and foremost, you will gain access to a fundraising dashboard in which not only your organization, but your participants will be able to sign in and have one place to manage everything that they're looking to do. And within this fundraising dashboard, you can upload fundraising guides, the social templates, the email templates, text templates, storytelling resources. Really, the sky's the limit on there. But you will be able to add any of the resources that you're looking to help your participants do this through that dashboard here. And it's an easy, you can see on the screen here, there's one easy tab that they need to switch to when they're in that dashboard to find all of the resources that you have for them. Supporters can create their own fundraising pages and customize them. They're completely customizable to whatever the peer-to-peer supporter would like to do. So you have full control, and you have both a personal and a team fundraising page on that as well. And finally, something that we've also noticed that really helps with participants to gain access and learn the fundraising tools is a welcome quest. So QGive offers this natively within our platform itself so that all supporters can get in there, search around, see about their fundraising tools, and get familiar with everything so they can start working on those 4 key behaviors, right? They'll also gain access to a lot of communication tools, whether it's social media tools. We have a social media sharing tool. We have email tools. We have text fundraising tools for supporters built into our peer-to-peer fundraising platform. We have personalization tokens and email lists as well that make it easy for your participants to specifically call out personalization tokens. Sorry, my brain's a little jumbled. Personalization tokens are about personalizing an email. And when someone puts this personalization token in there, they can call them out by first name. So if they want to say, hi, Caitlin, and then they can go right into their email appeal. These are great to use within your supporters campaign so that they can personalize all the communications that are going out. And finally, we have a direct integration with Facebook Fundraisers. So they can actually set up this integration and raise all of the money that they're looking for on Facebook itself. So really great integration for everyone to use, including your supporters. Also, you'll have access to all of the gamification tools that we have within it. So this is also natively built into our platform, and your organization can create custom badges, or you can use our default badge system. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've already created it for you. We have dedicated team and individual leaderboards, so everyone can track how they're doing, and they can even add these to their own fundraising pages as well. And we also have fundraising thermometers so that everybody can track their fundraising progress, and you can do this as well when you add it to your fundraising website. And you are at the center of everything that we do here at QGive. And we're here to help you succeed. We have personal one-on-one customer support at no extra charge. You can explore hundreds of free webinars, ebooks, blog articles, and other fundraising resources, and you'll be part of our development process here at QGive. Our clients guide our platform development, which means your feedback is heard and incorporated into all of the changes and updates that we make here at QGive. A little bit about our pricing structure. So we do have different packages that you can add on when you do sign up with QGive. So our base package is our starter package. It includes both our donation forms and our event registration forms. So if you're looking to upgrade into the peer-to-peer side, that is going to be $259 a month. Or if you want to pay quarterly and save a little money, you can do that at $687 a quarter. And with peer-to-peer, you'll gain access to everything that we talked about here today. And we also have a ton of other great tools as well that your organization can use for your annual fundraising, including our Giving Essentials package, which has a lot of advanced data and integrations and our reporting, text fundraising tools. So you will have text fundraising included in peer-to-peer, but text fundraising specifically for outbound messaging as well is going to be incredible for your organization. And then we also have an auctions package. Let's talk about some questions.